In this unit of grade 7, we will look at what we call the miracles of Jesus. They're stories about Jesus, but because there are so many of them, nearly 40 miracles recorded in the Gospels, we will focus on the stories from the Gospel of John. But we first need to understand, what do we mean by miracles? Well, in the modern world, when people talk about a miracle, they mean anything that happens which is unexpected or unexplainable. In the ancient world, miracles were seen more as act of divine providence. That means it is something that God does. For us, a miracle could be, somebody diagnosed with cancer and then they got cured. We call it a medical miracle. Or a runner in the Olympics who wasn't expected to win, but suddenly he finds a dose of strength and he wins. And so we say that it's a sporting miracle. In the Bible, it's a very specific meaning. It means God doing something that humans really could not do. Whether it's medical, physical, psychological, or spiritual, it's considered a miracle. Now, in the Gospel of John, there are only 7 of these stories, 7 miracles. But John doesn't describe them as miracles. In fact, John uses a specific word. He calls them signs. Think of them like road signs. They are telling us something is special in this place, or this is the place, or this is where you need to be. But they're not just signs of the future or signs of history. John says that they are signs of Jesus. They're telling us something about Jesus. So they're not miracles in the modern sense. They're not miracles even in the ancient sense. They're more like road signs. They're telling us Jesus is here. Jesus can do this. Jesus has done this. If you follow him, this is what may happen. And having 7 signs is important because 7 is such an important number in the Bible. It's God's number. And so by saying that there are 7 signs relating to Jesus, he is also saying that Jesus is God. So whatever Jesus does, these special miracles of Jesus, they are signs from God. The first miracle of Jesus in John is a special one. Jesus did not want to do this miracle. He wasn't there for that purpose. He had been invited to a wedding. An embarrassing situation arose and people did not have enough to drink, enough wine to drink. Let's get something clear at the start. The word wine in the New Testament refers to any liquid from grapes. It could be the fermented wine as we know it, or it could be pure, simple grape juice, depending on what stage of liquid was coming out of those grapes. Okay, so it depends on the production. Anyway, they had run out of wine. His mother, Mary, says, they've run out of wine. What? This is nothing about me, and yet he performs a miracle. Now, on the surface, it seems like a very simple miracle, but let's think about it a little bit more scientifically. This is water. This is grape juice. This is not wine. It's not the fermented stuff. It's real grape juice. This has a chemical formula consisting of hydrogen and oxygen. This has a chemical formula consisting of hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Even grape juice has carbon in it, just like wine. So when Jesus changed water into wine, he didn't just put color into this water and maybe fragrance the way we can do in modern times. And people are like, I got tricked by it. It's not simulated wine. It is the real grape product, whatever it is, pure juice or a little bit fermented. He changed the molecular structure. This is chemistry. This is basic science. To go from this to this, you have to change its structure, its chemical structure, its molecular structure. And that's what Jesus did. It amazed everybody, not only because of the taste, but it's like, who can do this? What kind of person is this who can actually change science? Well, he's the creator. But something else I like about this miracle is the amount of grape juice or wine that Jesus produced. Something like 600 liters. Why? This is to show that the blessings of God are not limited. That when God wants to bless his people, he gives blessings in abundance. So that was the first sign. Jesus is here. He's got the power of the Creator to change substances and the generosity of a God of love. That's the Jesus we will be studying about, or we are studying about in this lessons. John's second sign, or second miracle, is about this very high-ranking official whose son was very ill. And he wanted Jesus to come and heal. But he felt that maybe he's not qualified, since he's clearly not a Jew. He was an important man, but he eventually decides to get the message to Jesus. So he sends some servants or some assistants to go and meet Jesus. And they come back with the word, he's going to be okay. By the time they got back, the boy was already all right. The illness had passed. It's like having a COVID vaccine with some severe side effects, and then it passes and you're like, okay, he's all right. But the official knew it was not that simple. So he wanted to know, when did it happen? And they gave him the approximate time when Jesus said he'll be okay. And that was the time when the fever or the illness passed from the boy. And so here was a family that probably were not popular with the Jews. Jesus helped them anyway. Jesus spent most of his time with the ordinary people, but he did not neglect the important, the high-placed people either. The story shows not so much the power of Jesus over illness, that is seen in miracle after miracle after miracle, but the power of Jesus over the different levels of societies. God doesn't care only about one level. You may be from down here, God cares about you. You may be from up here, God cares about you. And when in need, God will answer the needs of everyone. And so this official, we don't even know his name, he got a special answer. His son was healed. His faith increased. The same thing can happen to us. Now, the answers of Jesus may not be the same for everyone, but they will be there. Why is this a sign? Because it showed that God is interested in everyone. He is interested in human need, not human class. In our sufferings and pain, not in our social status. That is the God that we meet in the Gospel of John. The third sign of John takes place at a very famous place in Jerusalem called the Pool of Bethesda. People believed the pool had magical qualities. And so the sick gathered around the pool. Once in a while the water would move. They believe an angel had stirred the water, and whoever can get in there right away would be healed. Around the pool lay a man who had been a paralytic, could not move all of his life. And he waited there for somebody to have the heart to push him into the pool. But when people are in need, they don't see someone else's need, only their own. So nothing happened. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Then Jesus comes to the Pool of Bethesda. And it seemed he came there on purpose. He had no reason to be there. He sees this man. Do you want to be healed? He says, yes, Lord, but I have no way of getting into that pool. I can't move, I can't walk, and everybody is too quick for me. So before I get in, no chance. Jesus says, do you want to walk? He says, of course I do, but I can't get in. So Jesus says, why do you wait for the water? Get up, walk. And something in the man clicked, and he realized, hey, this is a command. This is not an advice. And so the command sounds real. Should I not? He didn't really think. He just jumped up and realized, wait a minute. The muscles that had atrophied for all those years, the muscles he never had, his body just tingled back to life. Many years ago, I had a surgery. They put you to sleep with anesthesia. You don't know what's happening. And when you wake up very slowly, and you begin to realize, oh, I'm waking up. Oh, I'm alive. I can breathe. I can talk. I can start to move. For him, it was not slow recovery like that. It was instant. Jesus just disappears. It happens to be a Sabbath day. You're not supposed to heal people on Sabbath, according to the Jewish leaders. So they take this man, they said, who healed you? And he didn't really know. And then he meets Jesus, and he realizes it was Jesus. And when they question him, he says this. He defends Jesus. He stands up. He says, I don't know what you think you're doing. I don't know your ideas, your suppositions, but I know this. I couldn't walk, now I can. This man cannot do these signs if it was not from God. So here was a man who never knew how to walk. Now he could walk because God gave a sign that had been prophesied by Isaiah, that the lame shall walk. Literally true, and psychologically and spiritually as well. So, are you dreaming of something great happening to you? It could. It happened at Bethesda. The next sign of Jesus is one of the most incredible miracles Jesus did, and the only one that's recorded in all four Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all of them record this Gospel. It is known as the feeding miracle. Imagine the mountainside around the Sea of Galilee full of people. And the Gospels tell us that there were 5,000 men. And you can extrapolate from that to how many women might have been there, how many children were there. Somebody has suggested at least 15 to 20,000 people that day. And they were so focused, unlike most of my students in class. They were so focused on what Jesus was saying, what Jesus was teaching, they forgot to eat. They were so excited to come and see Jesus, they forgot to bring food. They stayed on that hillside for the whole day and didn't realize they were hungry. Finally, Jesus stopped and says, we need some food. The disciples, where can we buy food? We don't even have enough money. All the village bakeries are closed because everyone is here. It probably meant all of the villagers around the Sea of Galilee had gathered to listen to Jesus. So Jesus says, give them food. So where do we find food? Well, Andrew, who was very much a man who could find things, he went around and he found a little boy who had some food, about 5 little rotis and 2 small fish, probably his lunch, which he forgot to eat. How do you persuade a young boy to give up his lunch, give up his ice cream? Well, Andrew had that skill, brought it to Jesus, and then Andrew says this, but it's so little. And look at how many people there are. Jesus took that little boy's lunch in his hand, prayed to God, and before you know it, the food was amplifying, magnifying, multiplying by itself. And in all the Gospels, we learn this, that everybody had food that day, and they still had 12 baskets of leftover. A boy's lunch, a hungry audience, a mountain side showing us God. And so there by the hillsides of Galilee, the people saw the bread from heaven, literally. They saw this food grow before their eyes. They saw the leftovers that were gathered. This was a sign. In fact, they were so convinced by this sign that at that particular moment, they wanted to make Jesus as the king. Not yet time. So he moves away. Have you ever been hungry, so hungry that you would eat almost anything? Or have you ever been so concentrated on something you didn't even know you were hungry? Well, God is looking after you whether you're hungry or you're not hungry. And he's there to supply in abundance like he did the crowd around Galilee. The next miracle of Jesus happened during a storm. Well, shortly after a storm. The disciples were in the boat and they're kind of a little bit worried. The storm is pretty violent. And then they see Jesus walking on the waters towards them. Now, you have lived long enough to know that humans can't walk on the water. We can swim on the surface of the water. Ships, big ships, can sail on that water. This is because of a scientific principle dealing with the buoyancy principle and displacement principle. And the human body, when upright, does not have that buoyancy or displacement principle, and therefore it will go straight down into the water. I once watched a Chinese kung fu movie, and the Chinese kung fu master was running on the surface of the water. And then, of course, in the after credits that they show at the end, there were these big rocks and wooden blocks just on the surface, below the surface of the water. So when you look at the film, the way the camera angle is taken, it looks like he's running on the water. Actually, he's running on these blocks that were placed there. No, Jesus walked in the water. And this was not a quiet lake like in that movie. This was a stormy lake where the waves were going up and down, and Jesus is walking across. Now, the response of the disciples is maybe more important than the sign or the miracle, because they saw the sign as a frightening one. Whoa, what is this? Who is this? At first, is it a ghost? And then, no, it's Jesus. But if it's Jesus, how come he can do this? Who is he? Is he a man? Is he God? Imagine their feelings. I think you would feel the same way. A bit dark, a bit stormy, walking on the water, and we'd probably be running for fear. But this sign is a sign that we can live not by fear, but by faith. Jesus told the disciples, do not be afraid, it's me. It's really me. I am walking. They never actually got into a discussion about Jesus as to how he could do that. We can understand the impossibility from a science point of view, but the disciples, we better leave this alone. Either we trust him, we believe him, we follow him, or just stay in fear of him. You know, some people follow God out of fear. Some people will follow God out of faith. I hope that you will choose faith, because that is the stronger, the more permanent and lasting way of following God. Then the sign will work for you. You know, I have not been blessed with good eyes. Without these glasses, if I remove them, I can hardly see the screen in front of me. And definitely I won't see you well in class. I need them almost all the time. Imagine not having eyesight at all. I have thought about all the miracles Jesus did. And the one that resonates with me is this man born blind, never having seen anything. My eyes are very important to me. Your eyes are very important to you. Most of modern day education is visual based. So imagine being born blind and you cannot see. You cannot see the trees. You cannot see these beautiful clouds in the picture. You cannot see the persons around you. It doesn't matter how good your tactile response may be or your hearing, so you can identify voices, but you've never seen no colors. Everything is always black, not even white, just black. And then Jesus comes around. This is one of those strange signs or miracles, because Jesus did not perform the miracle like that. He took steps. First, he made some mud with his spit and the soil in the ground, puts it on the man, asked the man to go and wash it at the pool of Siloam, and then his eye was restored. It was a miracle by stages. Not every miracle is instant. You live in a world of mama, instant noodles. You want everything instantly. But sometimes the best blessings of God comes slow burn. Some of the best foods in the world are made on very slow fires over a very long period of time. Some of the very best education in the world doesn't come right away. You know, there are so many high school students in Thailand who want to short-circuit their high school years to jump quickly into university doing this crazy thing called GED. It's really not meaningful, because that slow education actually helps you to grow socially, mentally, emotionally, intellectually. So when you get to university, you are much better prepared than somebody who kind of jumped the queue to get there quicker. Maybe that was the sign. Not everything God does is meant to be fast. No, God takes it slowly. And so the man gets healed. But then the big debate arose. Why was this man blind? His fault? God's fault? Whose fault? Jesus says no one's fault. It's just the way God works things out. His blindness becomes a sign of God's power. So the misfortunes of life are often signs of what God can do for us. Because when we experience the reversals of those misfortunes, then we realize the wow factor. Wow, so this is what God can do. Sign number 7 in John, according to the writer John, is the most astounding miracle, the most astounding sign. And if people do not accept this sign, then they will never accept God. Jesus had a good friend, Lazarus, in Bethany. Fell very ill, died. Sisters sent messengers to Jesus while he was still sick, but Jesus did not respond. In fact, Jesus waited for several days before saying, okay, let's go and see Lazarus. He is ill, he is sleeping. And the disciples thought he was literally sleeping. Jesus had to say, no, he's dead. When they arrived in Bethany, they were 4 days late. That's what Martha said. Lord, we have buried him. He's been in the grave for 4 days. If only you had come sooner. She felt it was Jesus' fault that her brother died. The other sister, Mary, said exactly the same way. Jesus went to the tomb with the sisters, had the stone removed, and he made this pronouncement, I am resurrection and life. If you believe in me, you are not really dead. Even if it appears you die, you're not truly dead. Nobody stays dead who believes in me. And then he calls out to the tomb, Lazarus, come out. And sure enough, Lazarus comes out. Now, the tomb entrance, this is one of those cut caves that people who are well off could afford. It's about that high. Lazarus is wrapped up in cloth like a mummy. I don't think that Lazarus walked out. I don't think that Lazarus could hop out because the ceiling was low. He probably had to worm his way out. And imagine the people when they see this mummy worming its way out of that tomb, they probably ran. Jesus had to ask them, remove the cloth. He is alive. This is the final sign, says John. It's the proof that God controls life and death. He is the source of life. He is the creator. But there's an interesting lesson here. Jesus did not respond right away. He waited for 4 days. So in the eyes of the people of the family, Jesus was 4 days late. In the eyes of God, he was still very much on time. In fact, there is a song that says that when Jesus is 4 days late, he is still on time. God is never late. He does things at the exact moment, at the right moment. And maybe this is why the Bible says we should wait. Because sometimes in waiting, we discover the newness of life. Those 4 days, the grief, the mourning, was replaced by complete exhilaration and joy. Lazarus is alive. How is that possible? Wow. So these are the signs. From changing a simple liquid, water, into something from grapes, wine, to bringing the dead mummy out of the tomb and newness of life. They're all signs of the amazing things God can do for you and me when we are willing to let him do.